Hi, it's DDX calling from Manhattan.
Hey, DBX, what's going on?
Hey, well, I've been listening to your show live for a few months, which has been nice. Don't know how long we'll be able to do that, but thanks for that. Anyway, the thing I wanted to talk about was the apparent sort of democratic deficit there appears to be in the US. As an outsider looking in, I'm British at the moment, might be Scottish in a month or two, but the Iraq War number 3 drive to seems like a pretty good example of this in that the people don't want Congress to vote to some extent, or at least the Congress don't. They want Obama to just go off and do his own thing, to some extent at least. But there seems to be a lack of desire for real democracy in action, and that seems to me similar in some ways to the desire to let the legislative branch deal with things as well. So whether it's Citizens United or Roe versus Wade, these seem like very, very important issues that the legislative branch should be dealing with. But instead, they leave it. Oh, sorry, that our elected representatives should be dealing with. But instead, they want to leave it to the courts or the executive branch. But I guess the question would be, there have been things that drives to take corporate financing of campaigns out of circulation, which is good. I think that's another democratic deficit in the U.S. But what do you do about the lack of desire from our elected representatives to actually represent the citizens?
All right, let me just restate what you're saying because your phone's breaking up a little bit. But for those who don't have the ear for accents that I do, basically you're saying that we have a deficit of democracy, and one of the clear indications of that is the failure of Congress to basically do their job and hold the president accountable on an issue like this, which is huge, and that is supposedly we need the Congress to authorize war. And this is a trend that we've seen in a really, I think in the past, it's probably since Nixon, where, and maybe there's always been this tension, and a presidential historian could answer this question better, but we certainly have seen an increase in the amount of authority that the executive is taking for itself. But I don't know that we have ever seen in years the amount of authority that Congress has been ceding willingly that we now see. And part of it might have been like, look, we had a democratically controlled Congress for 40 years in this country, basically from the 50s to the 90s. And I think because the Democrats felt they would never lose Congress, they were far more willing to challenge both Democratic and Republican presidents than we see now. And so on an issue which is probably the most important issue that can face a country, right? Are we going to go to war? The Congress is just basically running scared. And, I don't know how you fix this. This isn't the typical problem of money in politics. Because I don't see the direct connection between the buying of Congress and their failure to assert their institutional powers in this instance. It's just sheer cowardice. And, I don't know if it's because John Kerry lost the presidency. He was for the war before he was against it, or he was against it before he was for it, or whatever it was. And Hillary Clinton arguably lost the 2008 Democratic nomination because of her vote to authorize the Iraq war. But no one wants to be considered unserious because they would vote against the war. I don't know how you fix this. Their abdication. It's bad enough that they would vote to authorize it, but it's even worse that they would basically just, just you go do it, and then we don't have to get involved in it. It's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think therapists is exactly right. If they don't make a decision, then you can't be held accountable for it. But it's for, I guess, the electorate of the media to make sure they are held accountable for it. Make a
Right.
decision. Tell us what you think.
All
It's
right, listen,
important.
your phone's really muffled, but
Okay.
I think your last point, but I appreciate the call. I mean, the last point was, of course, if Congress won't allow itself to be on the hook for this, who's got to hold people to account? It's the media. And, I've seen slightly less or slightly more reflection in the media about the way they're handling ISIS than we saw 11 years ago. But I haven't seen enough of a change in the media to believe that if we were a year and a half out from another 9/11 attack, that the media would be any different. In fact, if I factor that in, I think it's almost worse. And I think maybe that's because we have a Democratic president. And the voices in the Democratic Party have been basically silenced and cowed because we have a Democratic president.